I know I put in an incident earlier today that the description was the computer is broken. So I'm going to put that in double quotes so it will evaluate both words. I'm going to say do that search, and since I've only got one record, it's going to actually pull up the one record for me. If I had multiples, it would have pulled them up in a list view. But you can see here's an old incident number 10-0001, and that short description was computer broken. So, nothing earth-shattering about that. What is kind of unique, though, is our ability now to go in and build advanced search criteria, right? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to create a new search here. I'll just give it my initials here. And this is very, very powerful. I want you to be aware of it. So I'm going to give it a new one, and then I'm going to say, well, what do I want to search in? So it's going to bring me up a list of all the different fields modules. I want to look at, I'm going to say I want to look at incidents. So I'm going to put that one over there. But I also want to look in service request. So I'll find that one. So obviously I'm looking across multiple tickets or workspaces or whatever. So I'll go with that. That's good enough for right now. Okay, well, within incident and service request, what do you want to search for? Well, first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm only looking at things that are 30 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes or less as one of my criteria there. And then I'm going to add another criteria in here where I'm only looking at it where, let's just find another good field to put in here. What's that other field? Where we'll say where my description is equal to email. So I'm only looking for tickets that are associated with that. So that's a secondary search condition that I've got in there. And, I can put in more, obviously, if I want to. Okay, I'll find the tickets it's got there. Then, well, what information do you want me to show you? Well, I want to know who that ticket was assigned to. I want to know the description just to verify that it was email. I want to know the first name and the last name of the person that was associated with the ticket. So we'll go first name, last name. You get the idea. So you build what it is you want to search on. You build what are the search criteria, i.e. less than 30 days old. And I can save that. It'll then bring up the options for me. That's a great search. But if I save that search, and this will be a jumping off point, once I do that, I also can leverage that over in the new analytics part. And again, this is a vast improvement over what the reports look like in version 11.6 and older. So I've got a bunch of reports out of the box about time tracking and service level agreements and agent time spending. But let me just kind of go in and create a custom report, because that's what you guys are really interested in, right? How easy is it for you to create your own reports? You don't need to call RightStar. You don't need to go to 3 days of crystal training. Just come in here and do it. So we'll just call this report RightStar, and it's going to say, well, what type of report do I want? And I'm going to go, well, we'll do incident. Now, I am not limited to just doing it on one record type. I can select multiples if I do what's called a cross-item report. But for simplicity here, we'll do it. So you'll notice what it does is it brings me down a list of all the fields associated with the incident module. But look up here on these save searches like I just did, even though I didn't save that one. If I wanted to put a filter, even though I'm going to pick the fields I want to show here, I wanted to limit it to like all incidents last 90 days, that save search I've got out there. I could invoke that search here as well. So, WYSIWYG kind of, how do you want your report to look? Think about your columns left to right. Well, I want to know who it is that's assigned to the report. I want to know the description of what the issue is. I certainly want to know the category of what's going on in the report. I'm going to scroll on down here. I want to know as I get down in here, I went a little bit too far there. I want to know who the report is. So I want to know the last name. I want to know the first name of the person in there. And I want to maybe know the current status of the ticket. So, you pick the report the way you want it. You kind of, hey, give me a preview of what that report might look like there. Apply the changes. It's going to come back, give me a preview of what that report should look like there. So now I'll scroll down, I'll look at my report, and I'll go, great, that's exactly what I want. Save it, go on about my business. Or maybe I come in here and say, let's add a chart to that guy. So everybody likes charts. So we'll do incidents by, say, category. I'm going to add that as part of this report. So again, it's going to go out and gen that so I can preview that as well before I say, that's exactly what I want. So now I have my tabular report. Now I have my embedded graphics at the bottom. And I'll go, great, that's exactly what I want. I can save it as Roger's report. Nobody else can use it. Or I can make it a shared report for the other agents to be able to use it. I can come up here and print the report. I can run it now. I can export it. Or maybe I want to set this up as a report that runs, every Monday morning at 5 a.m. so it's ready for our 8:30 meeting that we've got out there, and have it even go out on a distribution list to the people I want to see it. So reporting, I hope you would agree, is vastly improved, and that's up to and including the ability to also create your own dashboard. So any report that has a graphic in it can be said to be made part of that, and then someone could go in and just say, I'm going to create a dashboard for XYZ, look at all the various widgets you have out there from reports, pull in the ones you want, and then you've kind of got that ability. So I want to spend a couple of minutes on the administrative because we talked about that. So you still got your ability to do multiple workspaces, but remember, you're not limited to a single form per workspace now. So I'm going to go into IT service management. So I've got incidents and change requests and service requests, the things that you would imagine that I do in here. So if I pull up my incident, it's going to say, well, you've got business rules around your incidents. You've probably got some workflows around, when do we send an email? When do we escalate the ticket to somebody else? This is also, of course, where we have the layout of what the incident form looks like that you have the ability to change. So, this is that incident that I filled out earlier. Here's exactly the way it was laid out. If I've got drop-down fields, I just click on them, and of course over here it then shows me what my current values are. I could edit that and add to, delete fields. If you felt like in your environment there's one more unique field that I wanted on here, I could just go, hey, I need another drop-down, so I'm going to stick it over here. I'd give it a name. I would bind it to an existing field, or I would create a brand new field. By the way, you don't have to go down to the database level. You don't have to shut down FootPrints to be able to do that. So it's very, very configurable from that standpoint. So I'm not going to save that because I want to keep my form. But I did want to show you one other one in here. Let's look at a change request. And in here, instead of looking at the form, let's look at the workflow processes that we built. So I've got different workflows for when the change is a standard change versus an emergency change, the different types out there. So let's look at our standard change request. And this is my workflow approval when somebody submits a change that's designated as a standard change. So you can see that the ticket gets submitted and it immediately goes into a pending approval step where there are 5 business rules. And depending on what happens at this approval state, it'll either move on to go to accepted and scheduled and implemented, or it will get rejected and be moved over to close. So if I look at this particular rule here, so I'll just click on that guy, and it says this is an approval state. It says, well, if it's approved, it moves to the next state, which you can see is accepted. If not, it gets rejected. And in the rule, it says, well, who are the people who can approve the ticket? So I list those out right there. I could add or remove here. I'm in as an administrator. I could set a timeline on when the approvals need to be done. And if it's not done within that time frame, it'll automatically expire. And then you notice it says I have 5 rules associated with that. Well, obviously I've got to notify people that we're waiting for an approval. So that's an email that goes out. I've got to evaluate whether we got enough approvals. So all of those are just kind of embedded in here. So if I looked at one here, we can see that this is that business rule for pending approval. And it basically comes in here and says that in order to get it approved, the number of approval votes saying yes has to be equal to or greater than 1. Now, if you remember when we looked at the workflow, I had 4 names listed there. In this case, I would be saying only one of those 4 has to be able to do it. But if I wanted to say all of them, I'd just change the equation to 4. Or if I said it was a quorum, I'd change the quorum to the number to 3. And then more importantly, well, what do I want to happen if we do get the approval? And you move to the next step within the approval process. So again, very, very easy with a little bit of training for you guys to come in here and build your own workflows and the types of things that you would be doing while you are in there. Very, very powerful. The business rules are very, very simple to do, straightforward. What's the rule? When does it run? What's the criteria? What's the decision point? And what are the follow-up actions that you do there? In the administration also, I would just point out that's where we define our users, our roles, our teams. Under a role, again, I can define what you can see, and even if you can see it, what can you do? I define my different portals for those end users. I wanted to have multiples. And of course, here's where I very simply set up my email integrations, because of course you can submit tickets via an email. I configure my Active Directory synchronizations, those types of things. I can set up recurring tasks that I want to happen. All of that is done over here. And I guess the last thing before we open it up to questions is to talk about, you now truly do have a good CMDB that allows you, and again, you can have a CMDB for the facilities group, a different CMDB for the IT group, because the facilities group's not worried about network devices, they're worried about boilers and plumbing and HVAC equipment and those types of things. But we really do capture a lot of details. I'm just going to go in here and pull up one of my devices and I'll say, I want to take a peek at this router, so the network device that we've got out there. So I can see now all of the attributes about what we're tracking about that particular device, right? Life cycle, it's currently deployed, what's the asset tag, what's the description of it, MAC address, IP address, serial number, manufacturer, that information, financial information, when did we buy it, what was the invoice number, does it have an extended warranty, all of that information. But as importantly, if there were a primary owner of this device, financially, I've indicated that there is one, so I've linked from my address book one of my users. I also can see the ticket history for this device. I see there's been one incident opened against this router and one request for change opened up against that router. And I also can see if there are any dependencies out there. So I can currently see there are two devices, two laptops hanging off of this particular router. Must be a small router. But the point is I can put these types of things in, which ultimately allows me to go out and in a single view get an impact analysis of what is it, who does it belong to, what's the ticket history going there, and where it makes sense, you could even look at that in a visualized fashion. Now, this simple router doesn't make a lot of sense, but think about taking one of your production services like email, and you've got a series of servers underneath it running Exchange 2012 and maybe IIS, and you've then got some other servers that have Exchange databases on it. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to visually bring up that representation of those two services and understand the upstream, downstream dependencies there? And of course, notice here you can get this even more detailed if you need to have those view. BMC has discovery tools to help you map these relationships in version 12 if you did want to go down that particular device. So lots of great things in version 12, certainly a lot more powerful from the design, the business rules, the integrations that you can do there. So, Dick, I think with that, there's about 10 minutes left. We'll open it up for questions. And, of course, for any of you who want to dive in deeper, we're more than happy to set up a one-on-one demo for you to take a look at that.
Okay, great job, Roger. Thank you very much. There are some questions that are coming in. The first one here is, it says here, we are not an early adopter. When should we upgrade? It kind of reminds me of the old joke about pioneers. Those are the ones with the arrows in their backs. Right? So and version 12 has been out for a while now, right? So yeah,
you truly would have had an arrow in your back if you were one of the early adopters. And full disclosure here, when 12 came out, and that's been, gosh, a year and a half ago, there were some .0 issues. Let's just be nice and say it that way. But those have, for the most part, been corrected. We're on 12.1, patch 02, I think is the latest, something similar to that. So most of the deficiencies or things that just didn't work properly, they've been corrected here. And we currently at RightStar, we're doing a lot of FootPrints 12 upgrades now. So I think you would be safe to do that, especially if you're coming from an older version of FootPrints. And, we can kind of help you evaluate. One thing I point out is just to make sure people don't have misconceptions. With FootPrints, you've always been able to say, okay, push a button, come back a couple hours or, 3 or 4 hours later, and your upgrade was done. But because they rewrote the code base here, this truly is a brand new implementation. So it's pretty much standing it up all over again, knowing that you don't have the limitations you had in 11, but also understanding there's some work to redo workflows and business rules and those types of things. But I do think the product is mature enough now for you to feel comfortable going up there.